Hi, I'm Hilary Ramo, and I'm sitting here today with CEO of Evolve, Rogelio Santos, and we're going to be discussing his company and a lot of other interesting things. Rogelio, you were 8 years old when you learned how to program.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
When my mom came home one day and she was actually learning to program herself. And I watched her do a code, and it was 10 print hello world and 20 go to 10. And you actually watch the hello world repeat from the screen. And at that time, I remember the emotion that I had. It was, you're telling me I can control this two-dimensional screen, which I spend so much time watching. I can actually control my world. Everybody watches this thing. I watch this all the time. My dad came home one day, he was working with software from the garment industry, and he had a project. And I simply learned to code over a summertime while there was no school.
Simply.
I don't know what to say. I started to explain it because it was a new thing. It was no different than a video game that was presented to a kid or a puzzle.
So video games got you. How did the digital part of your life, what did that look like before you became a programmer?
Games and programs were very, very simple. You could actually press Control Break and you could actually see the software and see the actual code. So I learned to code by looking at other people's games.
Here you are, 8 years old, and you're learning how to program, and your father gives you a challenge.
So the first software that I ever wrote was for creating t-shirt labels. 50% cotton, 50% polyester. That takes a software to print out on a special printer to actually make these labels. Now the story goes, I was 8 years old. I was installing the software at my dad's office. It was 6 o'clock in the evening, nobody was really there. And he steps away, and I'm installing this software that I just wrote on this computer, and a man comes down the hallway. It was the CEO of the company. And the CEO of the company was leaving late, and he sees this little kid. The first thing he says, "Hey kid, get away from the computer." So my dad overhears this and steps in, explains what was going on. And then he looks at me, he says, "Hey, you wrote this, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Let me watch." So he watches me install it. He watches me test it out, run the whole program, print the labels. And he goes, "Huh." He goes, you did this. So he goes into his pocket, reaches out, and he took every dollar in his pocket. He had 3 $20 bills, 60 bucks. He goes, "There you go, kid." And at 8 years old, the first thought I had in my mind was, wait, you can get money for this? I was asked to do projects during the summertime, between classes, right? My summer times were filled with either both hanging out in the park with the kids and going to an office.
Writing code.
I had a desk and everything. I wrote software. I did a blood management software at 14 for Coney Island Hospital.
So you were a kid behind the screen doing this work, this complicated work.
Yeah.
And these big executives didn't know they were dealing with a kid.
One did. It was actually a couple of times they actually came to visit because they had to really address some new project details, and they had no choice but to realize.
What was their response when they saw you?
There was always the shock factor in the beginning. I kept the business, and always there was a comment like, I have a kid your age, right?
So how did you advance your coding skills?
This was the 90s, and there was no internet really. There was no real way to actually get the latest thing. You had so many other ways to kind of keep up. I remember when Microsoft and Visual Basic first came out, and it was the first time you went to Windows and the whole visual movement came in, and there was a training program. Everybody was an adult, and I must have been like 12, 13. And I remember going to the launching training seminar for this software. When I was in my early 20s, I had a company, I had a real estate software company. And it was a national title company to help build cell towers around the United States. One of the challenges that I had and one of the opportunities that brought me back to the Philippines was actually using it for outsourcing and developing a back-end operations. We were very young at the time into that space. I didn't realize it. I once spoke to a government official and said, "Hey, how did you guys do this without any government help?" And I'm like, I just went back there and I set up an office. So I know what is outsourcing? What are you talking about? But I started with job creation and building businesses over there that were part of my international type of work. I growing up as an American and going back to the Philippines for the first time, it's very much apparent how it's mixed with wealth and poverty all in the same bowl, right? So it's very clear how diverse and how integrated everything is.
When you see a problem, what's your first go-to thought of how to fix it?
People that have that inclination always want to fix something. right? I think nowadays, I've grown up and I have to ask myself is, which problem is mine to fix? Because otherwise, you can't get anything done. You know, they have a saying, chase too many rabbits, catch none. It's about mastery, right? And the art of mastery to me is not about mastering a thing. You learn how to see everything else because you didn't master the thing, you mastered yourself.
So did writing code at such a young age influence your ability to be a visionary where you actually see the cause and effect of your decisions and your actions?
No, I think writing code helped in having confidence that I can comprehend something, break it down, and even without knowing the answer, know that if I broke down a problem to its core pieces, the answers revealed themselves. But being a visionary isn't that. Being a visionary is desire. Yeah, if you have the confidence that you can find and see something, but the visionary part is wanting to see something. You want to care. You have to care in order to look for a solution, right? So I think when you talk about what visionaries are and how that helped, it helped build the confidence to that if I cared, I could do something.